Hello everyone, today I want to talk about the new upcoming character Chasca and hopefully help you figure out if she fits your playstyle and team compositions. First though, let's quickly cover her skill kit, and as most of the time the normal attacks aren't anything too special, so let's start with the elemental skill. Chasca mounts her gun and will be airborne in a similar way as the Wanderer is, and the Night Soul meter also works similarly to determine the duration. As for her attacks, she can use normal attacks to deal some anemo damage, but her main gimmick is her charge attack. She loads up her gun with the shells while holding down the button, and on release it fires them. Like pretty much any anemo character, Chasca obviously also needs to have some synergy with Electro, Cryo, Hydro or Pyro characters. Simply by having these elemental types in your team, some of Chasca's shells undergo elemental conversion. As for her burst, it's the same design basically. She shoots her gun and the projectile splits into multiple shells which also undergo elemental conversion. As for passives, of course she has the standard Natlan phlogiston interactions, but for combat though, the first passive is a chance when using the elemental skill to have one additional shell undergo elemental conversion. The chance is based on the number of synergistic elemental types in your team, and there's also some damage bonus involved. And at last, there is the usual Night Soul Burst synergy. Whenever it's triggered, Chasca will shoot enemies for some extra damage. Like I mentioned earlier, there are very obvious parallels to the Wanderer Scaramouche or whatever you wanna call him. The elemental conversion is even simpler for Chasca. Again, she just needs to have the characters in her team, that's it. It's not necessary to swirl anything, and of course the airborne movement looks about the same. In combat though, she might feel even a little bit better since Chasca has innate resistance to interruption, which makes a lot of sense considering she uses charge attacks with a very long channel time. I assume this means she is less likely to be treated like a volleyball in midair if you don't use shields. One thing that remains to be seen though is the Wanderer often has tracking issues if he is levitating too far above enemies, which might also be a problem for Chasca. In general, I think her playstyle appears to be a lot more passive. I assume you will throw a lot of utility characters in her team and spam charge attacks, so that's it. If you like to be very active as in pressing a lot of buttons all the time, then I don't think Chasca is the right character for that. For me personally, I like to occasionally play these type of characters, like Neuvillette for example. It's nice to just turn the brain off when farming domains, but usually I tend to prefer more exciting gameplay. As for team composition, Chasca is obviously a classic main DPS, meaning she demands a lot of field time and therefore only wants sub DPS and utility characters in the remaining slots. Then there's also the new character Auroron. He is a electro sub DPS and he is one of these characters who only have synergy with one very specific elemental reaction. In his case it is electro charge, and I think you can definitely play these two in a team like this together. Unfortunately though, Chasca is a character who only uses charge attacks, which means a lot of these standard Hydro sub DPS synergies don't work, like for example Jingzhou or even Yelan, and of course you can make exceptions up for Yelan, that you just press her burst for the damage bonus and maybe you have Elegy for the end equipped or something like that. And even someone like Mona, her burst skill doesn't last very long, the damage bonus of it, so Chasca attacks very slowly, so a lot of synergy or like value gets lost there, I assume. I think the only good Hydro sub DPS option actually is Furina. And then, of course, if we pick Furina, in the last slot we need a healer character to synergize with Furina's burst skill. Of course, we have Shilona in the latest edition here, and unfortunately she is a Geo character, so we don't get the triple synergy elements for Chasca, but we get triple Natlan characters, which means the lowest cooldown of the Night Soul Burst mechanic. Otherwise, for the triple synergy, we can go with Bennett for the Pyro element, and otherwise, it is getting a little bit sus, but we can go for Hydro Resonance, I guess, with Kokomi, and Furina does more damage and she gets the healing. Otherwise, we can drop Furina and even go for Furuzan. Furuzan is obviously a invaluable asset for any Nemo main DPS. And I think another very interesting team here is a melt team. Of course, Chasca can melt by herself simply by having a Cryo and a Pyro character in her team through the elemental conversion of her bullets. And then, of course, Shanae and Bennett provide a lot of extra damage bonus and scale the melt damage a lot. And since Chasca doesn't do a lot of anemo damage in a team like this, she actually gets a lot of benefit from a character like Sucrose from the Viridescent set or Kazuha, and the extra bonuses with the elemental mastery or the elemental damage. In terms of elemental damage, you can even play like a character like Shilonen, for example. And one more option I like a lot here is even going for Rosaria. You get the Cryo Resonance and the damage crit rate buff, from Rosaria herself, which is a lot of stats. And of course, Rosaria's burst skill also snapshots, so she gets a lot of extra damage from a character like Bennett as well. And these two team compositions were definitely the ones that stood out to me in terms of overall team-wide synergy, but of course you can just pick characters that synergize with Chasca herself in terms of like the elemental types she prefers. So for example, like Electro plus Pyro, and then any sustain character, again, someone like Shilonen is always great. You could even pick someone like Kokomi and have triple element and have like a Chasca national team, I guess. And of course, like Pyro Resonance isn't bad for a attack scaling character. Even like a Cryo character in this spot would be okay, but in this place I would probably prefer something like this. And then of course Diona at C6 provides extra elemental mastery, Layla at C4 also provides extra charge attack damage, which is really nice, but in this team of course Layla doesn't provide any healing, so it's probably not great with Farina, to be fair. And then of course you can also just mix and match however you want with these elements that Chasca synergizes with. As for the build, it's a pretty standard DPS build with the usual crit damage, and I just realized this looks very unbalanced, but keep in mind Chasca herself already has like 20% baseline crit rate at level 90 and another 40% with the Obsidian Codex set, so she is at like 60% with that alone, so this character has a very high focus on crit damage instead. And then attack and anemo damage bonus are obviously very nice to have, and then elemental mastery can be very nice if you play specifically the melt team, otherwise I would say it's less of a priority. And less of a priority is also energy recharge, because to begin with, her burst skill is very low in terms of energy cost, and this character is more so about the elemental skill anyway. Then for weapons, I think just a general stat stick will do fine with like attack, crit rate, crit damage ideally as substats, and then just elemental damage bonus, or just like charge attack damage bonus for example as effect, or just general stats again. And I think this is a good weapon. Otherwise, for craftable weapons, the one from Natlan is good. Even the one from Inazuma, the Hamayumi with the high charge attack damage bonus, can be nice, but this weapon specifically requires some like very good energy management and probably very different rotations to keep it up. And then, again, Obsidian Codex set with high crit damage is what we are looking for here. And then attack in this slot, anemo damage bonus in this slot, and crit damage, because you get the crit rate again from the artifact set itself. Alright, we made it to the end. I hope this was somewhat helpful to figure out if this character appealed to you. I will get Chasca and try her out, so stay tuned for that. Until then, have fun and bye bye.